The night my father threw me out of our house, he told me I would never amount to anything. 7 years later, he called me crying, and begged me to save the family business. What he didn't know was that I already had the one thing that could destroy everything he'd built. The night my father threw me out of our house, he didn't cry. He didn't apologize. He didn't even look sorry. He stood in the doorway of my childhood bedroom, pointed toward the stairs, and said, "You're 18 now. If you think you're so smart, go build a life without us." I looked at the suitcase beside my bed. Inside were 3 shirts, 2 pairs of jeans, my birth certificate, a pair of worn-out sneakers, and $86. I was 18 years old. And I had no idea that walking out of that house would eventually become the best thing my family ever did for me. Because 7 years later, the same man who told me I would never make it without him called me at midnight. His voice was shaking. "Sarah. I need you." I almost laughed. But then he said 6 words that changed everything. "Your brother is going to prison." My name is Sarah Miller. I was 18 when my family threw me out. And before I tell you how that happened, you need to understand something about the Miller family. From the outside, we looked perfect. We lived in a beautiful 2-story house in a quiet Ohio suburb. My father, Richard Miller, owned a successful construction company. My mother, Diane, volunteered at church events and never missed an opportunity to tell people how proud she was of her family. And then there was my older brother, Ryan. Ryan was the golden child. He was 4 years older than me, athletic, confident, charming, and according to my father, born to run the family business. I was different. I liked books, numbers, quiet mornings, and asking questions. Too many questions, according to my father. Whenever Ryan made a mistake, Dad called it a learning experience. Whenever I made one, he called it proof that I wasn't ready for the real world. I learned early that Ryan was allowed to fail. I was expected to succeed. And honestly, I didn't mind. I wasn't jealous of him. At least, I didn't think I was. I had my own dream. I wanted to go to college, study accounting, and eventually become a forensic accountant. I loved numbers because numbers didn't lie. People did. And in my family, I was slowly discovering there were a lot of lies. When I was 16, I started working after school at a small grocery store. I saved almost everything I earned. My plan was simple. Graduate high school. Go to college. Get out. I wasn't trying to escape my family. I just wanted to become my own person. By the time I turned 18, I had saved a little over $8,000. That money meant everything to me. Every shift. Every weekend. Every birthday when everyone else was buying clothes and going out with friends. I saved. Then, 3 weeks before graduation, I noticed something strange. My father had started coming home late. My mother was nervous. Ryan had suddenly become extremely interested in my college plans. One night, I walked into the kitchen and heard them talking. I stopped before entering. My father's voice was low. "We have until Friday." My mother whispered. "What happens if they find out?" "They won't." Then Ryan said. "What about Sarah?" There was a pause. My father answered. "She doesn't know anything." I froze. I wasn't supposed to hear that. I quietly walked away. The next morning, I started looking. I didn't know exactly what I was searching for. I just knew something was wrong. My father owned a construction company called Miller Ridge Construction. He had always told us the company was doing extremely well. But when I opened the family computer and looked at a spreadsheet he'd accidentally left open, I saw something that made my stomach drop. There were payments. Thousands of dollars. Some were listed as equipment purchases. Others were labeled consulting fees. But several companies receiving the money had names I'd never heard before. I searched one of them online. The address was a mailbox store. Another company was registered to an apartment complex. And the third one? It was registered to Ryan. I stared at the screen. My brother had his own company? Why? I printed everything. I didn't know what it meant yet. But I knew it wasn't normal. That evening, I confronted Ryan. He laughed. You seriously think you understand business because you took an accounting class? I didn't say that. You don't know what you're looking at. Then explain it. He stepped closer. Stay out of Dad's business. That was the first time Ryan had ever threatened me. I should have stopped there. I didn't. Because the next day, I found something much worse. A bank statement. Money from Dad's company was being transferred into Ryan's private account. Thousands at a time. And the transfers had been happening for more than 2 years. I took pictures of everything with my phone. Then I made a mistake. I told my mother. I thought she'd be horrified. Instead, she sat at the kitchen table and stared at me. Finally she whispered. Sarah, sometimes families have to protect each other. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Protect each other from what? She wouldn't answer. That night, my father called me into his office. He closed the door. You've been looking through things that don't belong to you. I was trying to understand what was happening. You don't understand business. I understand money being transferred to fake companies. His face changed. Just slightly. But I saw it. Fear. Real fear. Then he said. You're 18 next month. You need to start acting like an adult. I am. No. You're acting like a child who thinks she can expose her own family because she wants attention. I don't want attention. Then forget what you saw. I shook my head. I can't. He stared at me for a long moment. Then he said something I'll never forget. If you choose this, you choose what happens next. I didn't understand what he meant. Not yet. 2 days later, I came home from work and found my suitcase sitting on the front porch. My mother was crying inside. Ryan was standing near the kitchen. My father was waiting for me. I looked at the suitcase. What's this? Dad said. You're leaving. I actually laughed. Leaving where? Anywhere. My mother covered her face. I looked at her. Mom? She wouldn't look at me. I turned back to Dad. Is this because of the documents? He didn't answer. That was my answer. You can't throw me out. I'm not throwing you out. He pointed toward the driveway. I'm giving you freedom. I felt something inside me break. Freedom? You're 18. So that's it? You're old enough to make your own choices. I looked at Ryan. He was smiling. That's when I understood. This wasn't about me being difficult. It wasn't about freedom. They wanted me gone. Because I knew too much. I grabbed my suitcase. My mother finally came toward me. She hugged me. And whispered. I'm sorry. I pulled back. Then come with me. She froze. She didn't. She couldn't. She chose them. I walked outside. I put my suitcase in my old Honda Civic. Before I got inside, my father came down the steps. Sarah. I turned. He looked at me without emotion. Don't come back asking for money. I nodded. I won't. Don't call us when college gets hard. I won't. Don't expect this family to rescue you. I looked at him. I never wanted you to rescue me. Then I got into my car. I drove away with $86 in my wallet. I didn't cry until I reached the gas station 20 minutes later. I parked beside a closed laundromat. And for the first time in my life, I allowed myself to fall apart. I cried so hard I couldn't breathe. Then I wiped my face. I opened my phone. I called my best friend, Megan. She answered immediately. Sarah? I couldn't speak. She knew something was wrong. Where are you? I told her. She didn't ask questions. She simply said. Come here. That night, I slept on Megan's family's couch. The next morning, I found a cheap room to rent. It wasn't pretty. The ceiling leaked. The heater barely worked. But the key was mine. For the first time, I had a place nobody could kick me out of. I started working 2 jobs. During the day, I worked at a diner. At night, I stocked shelves at a grocery store. I took community college classes online. Sometimes I studied in the break room. Sometimes in my car. Sometimes at 3 in the morning because that was the only quiet time I had. I missed my family. I hated admitting that. I missed my mother. I even missed Ryan sometimes. But I never called. And they never called me. Not once. My 18th birthday passed. Then my 19th. Then my 20th. Nothing. No birthday card. No Christmas call. No apology. Nothing. So I stopped waiting. I built a life. At 21, I transferred to a 4-year university. At 22, I graduated with honors. At 23, I became a certified forensic accountant. And at 24, I got hired by one of the largest financial consulting firms in Ohio. I was good at what I did. Really good. I learned how to follow money. How to find hidden transactions. How to uncover fake companies. How to recognize patterns people thought nobody would notice. Ironically, the thing my father had tried to make me ashamed of became my greatest strength. I eventually moved into a beautiful apartment. I bought a better car. I traveled. I had friends. I had a life. And I stopped thinking about my family. Or at least, I thought I had. Then, 7 years after the night they threw me out, my phone rang at 12:17 a.m. The number wasn't saved. I almost ignored it. But something made me answer. Hello? There was silence. Then a man's voice. Older. Tired. Broken. Sarah? I sat straight up in bed. I knew that voice. It was my father. I hadn't heard it in 7 years. How did you get my number? I need to talk to you. I said nothing. He took a breath. Then another. Please. That word sounded strange coming from him. My father never said please. What happened? His voice cracked. It's Ryan. I closed my eyes. What about him? He made a mistake. I almost laughed. Ryan had been making mistakes his entire life. But my father continued. The police are investigating the company. My heart started beating faster. What investigation? They found financial records. I sat completely still. My father whispered. They think Ryan stole money. I looked toward the window. 7 years. 7 years of silence. And suddenly they needed me. I asked the question I already knew the answer to. Why are you calling me? My father didn't answer. Why now? Silence. Then he said. Because you're the only person who can fix this. I laughed. Not because it was funny. Because it was unbelievable. You threw me out. I know. You told me never to come back. I know. You told me the family wouldn't rescue me. His breathing became heavier. I know, Sarah. Then why are you calling? His answer chilled me. Because the investigators found something else. I stopped laughing. What? My father whispered. Your name. I felt the room disappear around me. My name? Yes. Where? I can't explain over the phone. Then explain. I need you to come home. No. Sarah, please. No. We're in serious trouble. I stood up. You made that choice 7 years ago. Your brother could go to prison. I didn't respond. Then my father said something that made my blood run cold. And if we don't fix this, you could go down with him. The call ended. I stood in my bedroom staring at the phone. For 7 years, I had believed they threw me out because they were afraid I would expose them. But now I was beginning to realize something much worse. Maybe they didn't throw me out to silence me. Maybe they threw me out because they needed someone to blame. And if my name was really inside those financial records, then everything I'd built could disappear overnight. I grabbed my laptop. I opened my old files. And then I saw it. A document I'd forgotten about. A document from 7 years ago. My father's signature. Ryan's name. And underneath both of them, my name. I stared at the screen. Then I whispered, "What did you do to me?" And that's when I realized. My family hadn't called me because they needed my help. They had called me because they needed a scapegoat. And this time, I wasn't going to walk into their trap alone. My name was on the document. But I knew I hadn't signed it. I stared at the screen for almost 10 minutes, trying to remember where I'd seen that paperwork before. Then it hit me. My 18th birthday. The week before my father threw me out. I had been sitting at the kitchen table while my father complained about paperwork. He'd asked me to sign several documents because, according to him, every family business needs updated records. I hadn't read every page. I trusted him. That was my mistake. I printed the document and drove to my office before sunrise. I didn't call my father. I didn't call my mother. And I definitely didn't call Ryan. Instead, I called my attorney. Her name was Jessica Grant. She had handled a small legal matter for me 2 years earlier and was one of the few people I trusted completely. I sent her the document. 20 minutes later, she called. "Sarah, where did you get this?" "My father's old files." "Did you sign this?" "No." "Are you sure?" I would remember signing a document that could make me responsible for millions of dollars. Jessica went quiet. Then she said, "Don't contact your family again." My stomach dropped. Why? Because if this signature is forged, this isn't just a family dispute. She paused. It's fraud. I leaned back in my chair. For years, I'd wondered why my father had been so desperate to get me out of the house. Now I knew. They didn't just want me gone. They needed distance between me and the paperwork. They needed me to disappear. And they had succeeded. At least, they thought they had. Jessica asked me to send her everything I had. I opened old folders. Bank statements. School records. Emails. Photographs. Anything from that time. Then I found something I had completely forgotten. A text message from my father. It was dated 3 days before I turned 18. The message said, "Come downstairs when you get home. Need your signature on some business forms." I had replied. Okay. Jessica read it. Then she called me. "Sarah, this could be important." "Why?" "Because it establishes that your father was asking you to sign documents connected to the business before the alleged fraud occurred." I felt sick. What do we do? Nothing yet. Nothing? We build the timeline first. That's exactly what we did. For the next 2 weeks, I became obsessed with my own past. Every bank statement. Every email. Every document. Every photograph. Every message. Piece by piece, the story came together. My father had created several shell companies. Money from Miller Ridge Construction had been transferred into those companies. From there, it moved into accounts connected to Ryan. But there was one problem. One of the companies had been registered using my name. And the paperwork showed that I had supposedly approved the transactions. Except I hadn't. I was 18. I was working at a grocery store. I had never even heard of the company. Jessica found another problem. The signature on the document wasn't mine. It looked like mine. But it wasn't. She hired a forensic document examiner. The result came back 3 days later. The signature had been traced. My father had forged my name. I stared at the report. For the first time in 7 years, I felt something other than anger. I felt relief. Because I wasn't crazy. I hadn't imagined what happened. They really had planned this. Jessica looked at me. Sarah, you need to understand something. What? If your father knowingly used your identity to hide financial transactions, you may be a victim. I laughed bitterly. A victim? Yes. I looked down at the report. My family threw me out because they were using me as cover. Jessica nodded. And now they're scared. That evening, my mother called. I didn't answer. She called again. Then again. Finally, she left a voicemail. Her voice was shaking. Sarah, honey, please call me. I deleted it. She called the next day. I ignored her. On the third day, she sent a text. We never wanted to hurt you. I stared at those words. Then I typed one sentence. You knew. She didn't respond. I waited. 5 minutes. 10. Finally, 3 dots appeared. Then disappeared. Then appeared again. Her reply came. Your father said he was protecting the family. I closed my eyes. There it was. The excuse I'd heard my entire childhood. Family. Always family. Except somehow, protecting the family always meant sacrificing me. I called her. She answered immediately. Sarah? How long did you know? Silence. Mom. I didn't know everything. That's not what I asked. She started crying. I knew your father was moving money. How much? I don't know. You knew Ryan was involved? She didn't answer. Mom. Yes. I felt my chest tighten. And you let them put my name on those documents? I didn't know what they were doing with your name. You knew enough. She started sobbing. I was afraid. I whispered. So was I. There was silence. Then I said the sentence I'd wanted to say for 7 years. You chose them. My mother cried harder. I loved you. No. I shook my head even though she couldn't see me. You loved having me around because I was the one who always fixed everything. She had no answer. Then she said, Can you help Ryan? I laughed. Even after everything. That was still her first question. Mom, Ryan is an adult. He's your brother. And I'm your daughter. She went quiet. I continued. You threw me out. I know. You watched me leave. I know. You never called. I was ashamed. No. My voice became calm. You were comfortable. She stopped crying. I ended the call. The next morning, federal investigators contacted Jessica. They wanted to meet me. I agreed. The meeting lasted nearly 3 hours. I gave them everything. Every document. Every message. Every piece of evidence. And I told them the entire story. Including the night I was thrown out. Including the $8,000 I'd saved. Including the documents my father forced me to sign. Including the fact that my mother knew about the transfers. When I finished, one investigator leaned back. Sarah, there's something you should know. What? We've been investigating Miller Ridge construction for almost a year. I looked at him. We initially believed Ryan was the primary person responsible. Initially? He nodded. We now believe your father organized the entire scheme. My heart sank. What about Ryan? He participated. Does he know? Yes. And my mother? The investigator looked at his notes. She may have knowledge relevant to the case. I nodded. Then he asked. Would you be willing to testify? I looked at him. 7 years ago, I had been an 18-year-old girl standing on a porch with a suitcase. Now I was sitting across from federal investigators with the power to expose the people who had destroyed my life. I said yes. The trial took months. During that time, my father called me repeatedly. I never answered. Ryan sent letters. I never opened them. My mother came to my apartment once. I didn't let her inside. Eventually, the truth came out. My father had been stealing money from his own company for years. Ryan had helped him. They had created fake companies and transferred money through them. When the company began facing financial problems, my father realized investigators might discover the missing money. So they created paperwork connecting me to one of the shell companies. I had been 18. Young. Naive. And completely unaware. Then my father threw me out. He thought that if I disappeared, nobody would question why my name was on the documents. He was wrong. The evidence was overwhelming. My father was sentenced to prison. Ryan received a reduced sentence after cooperating with investigators. My mother wasn't sentenced to prison, but she lost almost everything. The house was sold. The business collapsed. The family that had once looked perfect from the outside was gone. But something strange happened afterward. I didn't feel victorious. I felt tired. Because revenge isn't always fireworks. Sometimes revenge is simply surviving long enough to watch the truth arrive. 6 months after the trial, I received one final letter. It was from Ryan. I almost threw it away. But I opened it. There were only a few paragraphs. He apologized. He said he had been jealous of me. He admitted he knew Dad planned to use my name. And then he wrote something that made me stop. You were always stronger than me, Sarah. Dad called you weak because he was afraid you'd become stronger than him. I read that sentence twice. Then I folded the letter. I didn't forgive him. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But I finally understood something. My father hadn't thrown me out because I wasn't enough. He threw me out because I knew too much. And the girl he thought he had abandoned had become the woman who exposed him. 1 year later, I opened my own financial investigation firm. The first office was small. Just 2 rooms. But on the wall, I put one thing. Not a family photograph. Not a motivational quote. A simple handwritten sentence. Never let someone convince you that surviving them is your weakness. Sometimes people ask me if I regret leaving home at 18. I don't. I regret that I was treated like a problem. I regret that my mother chose silence. I regret that my brother chose greed. But I don't regret walking through that door. Because that door didn't end my life. It started it. And 7 years later, when the same people who told me I would never make it without them needed me to save them, I finally understood the difference between being needed and being loved. Being needed means someone wants what you can do for them. Being loved means someone cares about who you are when you have nothing to give. My family needed my signature. They needed my clean record. They needed my expertise. They needed my silence. But they didn't need to love me. And that was the hardest truth of all. So if you're listening to this because someone in your family has called you the strong one your entire life, please remember something. You don't have to be strong for people who keep breaking you. You don't have to rescue people who deliberately put you in danger. And you don't have to earn your place in a family that should have loved you without conditions. Sometimes walking away isn't giving up. Sometimes walking away is the first time you choose yourself. My name is Sarah Miller. I was 18 when my family threw me out. 7 years later, they came back because they needed me. But by then, I didn't need them anymore. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories.